If you watch this video to the end, I'll show you exactly how you can figure out what the capacity of your agency is and exactly how you can increase that number to take on more clients without overworking your team. Now, what does capacity actually mean? Capacity can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So in this video, when I'm talking about capacity, I mean specifically the total workload your team can actually handle, which is measured in terms of the number of clients you can actually take on given the available resources. So my goal for the end of this video is that you're able to say, okay, this is the maximum number of clients that my agency can handle. And also, I want to give you kind of a roadmap that you can follow in order to actually increase that number and avoid any bottlenecks. Now, I will say, guys, if you are a complete beginner, I would recommend working this out. But if you're a bit more of an established agency owner and you've got clear deliverables, a clear process to actually achieve those deliverables, and different team members to help you out, then this is a really, really valuable number to actually work out. So how can we actually calculate this? So when we talk about capacity, at least in this context, there's two different ways you can kind of do this. You can calculate the general capacity or the role specific capacity. Now, in this example, I want to calculate the role specific capacity. And this is because this can give you a raw insight on what's actually constraining your growth. And you'll see exactly what I mean in a second. We're going to break it down by different roles in your different team so you can see exactly, okay, this is the thing I need to focus on in order to actually increase my capacity. If that doesn't make any sense, just hold on tight. I promise you it will in a second. So let's get into it. How do you actually calculate capacity? Now, bear with me, guys. This is made up of a three-step process. Also, as I'm kind of explaining how to calculate this, if you want to play this out with your own different numbers, I created this nice little spreadsheet out here that does all the hard work for you. All you have to do is input these different numbers, which I'm going to be talking over in a second, as I'm going live with it, and then it will automatically calculate the capacity along with the different role that's actually constraining it. If you want access to that, all you have to do is check out the first link in the description and join my community. It's 100% free. And if you go to the classroom section within YouTube resources, scroll all the way down to complete breakdowns and it will be right there linked below so you can just access it straight away. You can obviously calculate this by yourself without that spreadsheet, but it will make your life a bit easier. So if you want to check it out, it's 100% free, first link in the description. But let's get back to the video, guys. Capacity is more so of a three-step calculation, so let's start with step one, which is calculating bandwidth. Now, bandwidth is just basically the time that employees actually have available for new work. And the way I define it is made up of three different variables. We have capacity, which in this context means the total amount of hours available in a week for a specific employee to work. So, for example, for a full-time employee, this is around 40 hours per week, and for a part-time employee, this is about 20 hours a week. But obviously, depends on what type of contracts you actually have set up. We take that capacity, which once again is the total amount available per work in a single week, and remove any time spent on admin tasks. Now, admin is just time spent on different administrative tasks and other responsibilities within a specific role. So, for example, this could be different things like communication. What are the different recurrent tasks that a role has to do in its position? So just to give you more examples, this can be checking or sending out different Slack messages. It could be, I don't know, doing recurrent tasks like submitting expenses. Just anything that is not client work that employee still has to do on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, we have meetings. If you aren't sure about this admin number, don't worry too much. You can obviously refine this in the future. I'd say for now, you could put an average of a minimum about 2 hours per week per employee. But once again, don't focus too much on getting these numbers exact because what we're doing here is getting a rough estimate. Over time, as you get a better understanding of how these different things work, you can refine this to get a much more accurate capacity. But for now, just add an estimate. It doesn't matter too much. And also we have meetings, which is basically just time spent on meetings. The easiest way to track this is to open up your calendar or open up your employees' calendars and see what different meetings they had in a week, 2 week, or 3 week period, and then get an average for every single week. An important thing to kind of recognize here, guys, is that I'm calculating bandwidth on a weekly basis right now. So all of this is on a weekly basis. So weekly capacity, weekly amount of hours I spend on admin, and weekly amount of time I spend on meetings. So what you need to do now is basically calculate the bandwidth for each different role that you actually have within your agency. And I'll give you some examples. So in this case, we have 4 different team members. We have media buyers, we have designers, we have customer success managers, and we have appointment setters. We're basically going to calculate the bandwidth live just to give you some examples of how it actually works. So we'll start with media buyers. In this case, we have 3 full-time media buyers and they have about 5 hours of admin work a week and about 5 hours of meetings. So in order to actually calculate this, I can go bandwidth is equal to 40, because once again, we have 3 full-times minus 5, which is the admin time, and minus 5, which is the time I actually spent on meetings. Now, because you have 3 employees, I'm going to be timesing this whole thing by 3 because we have 3 people who are doing 40 hours per week, 3 people who are spending 5 hours on admin a week, and 3 people who are attending those 5 hours of meetings every single week. So I'm going to times this whole thing by 3. And with this, I can calculate the bandwidth for my media buyer role, which in this case is 90. Now, this basically tells me that the whole media buyer department or role has about 90 hours available every single week to take on client role. And if I was using a spreadsheet, you go over to the capacity calculator and I enter those numbers here. So capacity I've entered, admin time I've entered, meeting time I've entered, and I just times by the number of employee, which in this case is 3. Let's move on to the next one. Next, we're looking at designers. Now, in this case, we have four part-time designers, so spending 4 hours a week on admin work and 1 hour a week on meetings. So in this case, the capacity would be 20 because they're part-time members, minus 4, minus 1, and we're going to times the whole thing by 4 because once again, there's 4 different employees who are in this position. This gives us an answer of 60 hours. And once again, all this means is that designers have 60 hours every single week to actually complete client work. And once again, if I was using a spreadsheet, I would add in here. So 24, which is the admin time, 1 hours, which is the meeting time, and the number of employees, which is 4. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the calculations. I think you get a rough idea of how to actually calculate the bandwidth for different roles. But if you did want examples, you can pause it and kind of go over this. This is the bandwidth for the customer success managers, and this is the bandwidth for different appointment setters. And as you can see here, I gave an example of what it would look like if you have different positions within a role. So for example, in this case, we have 4 part-time members and 1 part-time. All we're doing is calculating them individually and then add them up at the end. And once again, if you're using a spreadsheet, these are the numbers you can actually follow. So now that we've actually gone ahead and calculated our bandwidth, we can actually move on to step 2, which is working on our client needs. Now, client needs is basically the amount of time each and every single role needs to dedicate each week to client per client. So for example, as an agency owner, I want you to be able to say, okay, my media buyers spend 6 hours every single week on every single client. And we need to do this for each and every single one of the roles. Now, a lot of people don't have this number on the top of their head. So let's figure out how we can actually calculate this. Because if you don't know it, I don't want you to stress. I've got different solutions. The first solution you can use is actually using a time tracking tool. Now, how does it basically work? It's fairly simple. You use a time tracking tool like Clockify, or if you're a bit more advanced, you can watch this video and you can set up your own time tracking tool within your project management system. It's a little self-promo there, guys, but don't worry about that too much. So let's say you're using a time tracking tool. You basically want to have team members track time for client-related tasks. For example, different meetings they have with clients, different deliverables, different emails, whatever it may be. And then you just want to divide the total time spent by the number of clients handled during the tracking period. So for example, if you get designers to track the different time they're spending on clients and they spend about 80 hours in a month on 10 different clients, all you have to do is do 80 divided by 10, and that gives you that they're spending about 8 hours per client per month. And then to get weekly, just divide it by 4. So that means they're spending 2 hours per client per week on client work. You obviously want to repeat that exact same thing for the different clients you actually have in the agency. Now, I expect that not all of you are using time tracking tools. So another solution where you can actually do here is auditing the tasks within a process, which once again, guys, at the start, I did say this is a lot more valuable if you already have an established process because you can do different things like this. So in this example, with a task audit system, all you want to do is break down a specific task each role performs for a client. And then for each one of the tasks they actually perform, you want to assign a rough estimate of how long each task actually takes and how often is it performed. So for example, for media buyers, you can do campaign setups, which takes about 3 hours, but it's only done once per month, which is about 0.75 hours per week. You can have auto optimizations, which is about 2 hours per week. You can have reporting, which is about 1 hour per week. And then you add everything together and it gives you the total of about 3.75 hours per week per client. A pro tip I'll give you guys is to make this a lot more accurate. Feel free to interview your team. I mean, no one knows how much time they're spending on different things better than them. So don't be shy to ask your different team how much time they're spending on different things, because that's an easy way to get more accurate insights on how long different things take, rather than you just having to guess everything from the top of your head. So in this example, I've got my media buyers, designers, customer success manager, and appointment setters, and I've just allocated 5 hours per week per client to the media buyer, 8 hours per week to client to the designers, 4 hours per week per client to the CSMs, and 9 hours per week per client to the appointment setters. And once again, guys, if you are using a spreadsheet, you can update all of this in this little section right here, just by adding the hours here per week per client. So cool. At this point, just to recap, we've calculated our bandwidth, which is the time to actually have available for new work every single week. And we've calculated how long it takes each individual role to service an individual client in a week. Now we can actually figure out capacity. Now the equation for capacity is actually surprisingly simple. All you need to do is divide the bandwidth by the number of hours or the client needs. And this makes a lot of sense, guys, because remember, this right here is the time they have available every single week to actually take on client work. So all we're doing is taking the time they're available, divided by how long it takes for every single client to calculate the maximum number of clients. And once again, guys, I'm going to give you a ton of different examples. So let's work it out. The first example we can do is media buyers. Now, for the bandwidth for the media buyers was about 90 hours per week, and it took them about 5 hours per week to complete that client work. So this means that the media buyers bandwidth was about 18 people. And all this means is that the maximum number of the clients they can actually handle while still fulfilling all the responsibilities and not overworking themselves is 18 different clients. For designers, their bandwidth was about 60, and each client required about 8 hours per week of work that they actually need to do. So in this case, this would be 7.5. An important thing to note, guys, if you do get a decimal here, you always need to run down just because you can't have half a client. So in this case, the real capacity here is 7. They can handle a maximum of 7 clients. I'm not going to bore you with all the different calculations. So if you want to see them, feel free to pause it and kind of go over different examples. But this is fairly simple. And for you guys that are using a spreadsheet, you don't even have to do all this math. You just go over to the first tab and it automatically just calculates everything for you. So as you can see, we can see our capacity. You can see the role that's actually constraining it. And also you get a breakdown for all the different roles as well. Now, this is useful because now, for example, we can say, okay, designers are our capacity. And one thing I want to touch on quickly, guys, is that these are the role specific capacities. But the way I see it, in this example, the capacity is 7. Doesn't matter that media buyers can handle 18 people. We have to look at who the lowest number is, which in this case, the designers who can handle a maximum of 7 clients. Because even if we were to bring on 18 clients, which the media buyers can actually handle, designers won't be able to handle 18 clients. They can't even handle 7. So this is the raw capacity for your agency. And we also get to break it down from a role specific situation, which is very, very valuable, as I'm going to talk about in a second. So we figured out how to actually calculate capacity, as I promised with you guys. But now you're probably thinking to yourself, what do I actually do with this number? So let's talk about it. With this magical number, I think the best thing you can do is create a roadmap on exactly what you need to do to actually increase your capacity. And the answer isn't just hiring more people, guys. If you look at the capacity formula, it's made up of 4 different variables. We have capacity, which is the total number of hours they have available every single week just to work. We have admin, which is the time they're spending on admin tasks. We have meetings, which is the amount of time they're spending every single week on meetings. And we have client needs, which is the amount of time it takes an individual role to serve as a client in a week. Hiring someone is obviously an easy way to increase their capacity. But at the same time, it's not a complete solution because if you hire someone, you take on more expenses, which decreases your profit. So rather than hiring someone straight off the bat, because in my opinion, that's more so of a last resort, you can work on these different free variables to actually increase them. So for example, for admin time, you can make it easier for your employees to communicate with different people. You can make it easier for them to find different resources. You can make it easier for them to do the recurring tasks, or you can automate the recurring tasks. For meetings, I'm gonna make a whole video about how to increase meetings, guys. But a lot of the meetings you have in the agency you just shouldn't have, or they shouldn't be that long. And this is something I had to audit myself. I was having so many different meetings with my team, and we went through a whole meeting audit process, which I'm gonna record a video on soon. So if you want to see that, leave a comment below in the description. But a lot of agencies are wasting a lot of different time on meetings, which is just taking time that the employees can actually have with different people. And lastly, we have client needs. Now, I think this right here is probably what I focus most of my channel on, just decreasing the time that your employees are actually spending on working on different projects for your clients. And this does not mean decreasing the quality, guys. The way I kind of see it, my philosophy behind this is you want to give your employees all the tools they need to do the job as easy as possible. And once again, that doesn't mean decreasing the standard of quality for your work for your clients. It just means that they're able to carry out more work, higher quality work in a short amount of time, so they're not as overworked. And this is super, super important, guys. This is where different things like automations, SOPs, clear systems to actually achieve those deliverables for your clients come into play. And it can avoid you having to hire a bunch of different people when all you have to do is optimize the process. Because once again, even though hiring more people is an easy way to increase your capacity, you're still going to increase your expenses, which is then going to decrease your profit, which isn't exactly a win-win. So what we've done with this calculation is now we know exactly which role is actually constraining you. So in this example, you can see the massive problem here is designers. Designers can take on about 50% of the capacity as everyone else. So what I would do here is go over to the designer table and see exactly what the problem is. Is it a capacity problem where we just need more employee? Is it an admin problem where they're spending too much time on admin work? Is it a meeting problem where they're spending too much time on meetings, or is it a fulfillment problem where it just takes them too long for every single client to actually service them? That's when you can kind of dissect it and move and create a structure and plan on how you can actually increase the capacity for this specific role. So, for example, here, I would decrease the admin time 4 hours per week, given the fact that part time is very, very high. And I would also increase the amount of time it takes them to complete a work for every single client by introducing better SOPs, introducing different automations that help them out with their work, and just having a clear process that they can actually follow in order to service their clients. Another thing to note, guys, is that your capacity should never really equal the number of clients that you actually have. There's different things like efficiency rate and utilization rate which come into play, and I'm going to make a whole different videos on utilization specifically. But basically, your capacity should not equal the number of clients, because let's say someone has 36 hours in a week available of bandwidth. it doesn't mean for those entire 36 hours they're going to be working, because different things like efficiency ratios come into play. And if you do have any employees, you can understand this, and you don't want them to work those whole entire 36 hours, because you're most likely going to end up overworking them, stressing them out, and they might churn, which isn't a great solution. So even though we do have the magical number of 7 in this example, it doesn't mean you should aim for 7 clients. And that's where you have to look at different things like utilization, which once again, I'm going to record a whole other video on. So if you want to see that, just leave a comment in the description, and I'll get it done as soon as possible. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. As I promised you at the start of the video, you now know exactly how to calculate the maximum number of clients that your agency can currently handle, and the next steps you need to take in order to increase that number to avoid overworking your team as you take on more clients. If you do want to access the spreadsheet, all you have to do is press the first link in the description and join our free community. Within there, we have over 200 established agency owners. And if you go over to the classroom section, within the YouTube resources, you'll find that exact same spreadsheet, which you can just make a copy of and begin using in your agency. And I would recommend tracking this once, guys. It's not something that you should do once and just leave forever. Because once again, at the start, you're going to get a rough estimate. But over time, as you get a better understanding of what different things like admin time or meeting time look like, you can refine it and calculate firstly a much more accurate capacity, but also see how it improves over time by adding different things like automations, different optimizations to your processes, or whatever else it may be. So it's a very, very useful number to track over time. It is more of a lagging indicator, but it still gives you an indication of if you're moving in the right direction. And if you're bringing on more and more clients every single month and you start reaching that number, then that gives you a good indication that you need to invest a bit more money in operations in order to increase the capacity so you can then continue taking on more clients without overworking your team, which is very, very important, guys. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out all the links in the description to access all the different free resources I talked about in this video. And apart from that, guys, that's it from me today. If you have any questions about anything, leave a comment below. We're more than happy to help with anything. And apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.